Okay, I am actively very out of town, and so I'm going to be recording this, but it might have some start and stop, so you might not see my face for part of it. But here we go. Okay, Chapter 7 of Good Girl, Bad Blood. 7. The Reynolds' house on Cedar Way had always looked like a face. The white front door and the wide windows on either side were the house's toothy smile. The mark where the bricks were discolored, that was its nose, and the two square windows upstairs were its eyes, staring down at you, sleeping when the curtains were closed at night. The face usually looked happy, but as Pip stared at it now, it felt incomplete, like the house itself knew something inside was wrong. Pip knocked, her heavy backpack digging into one shoulder. "You're here already?" Connor said when he opened the door, moving aside to let her in. "Yep, stopped by home to pick up my equipment and came straight here. Every second counts with something like this." Pip paused to let her shoes slip her shoes off, almost balancing when her bag shifted. "Oh, and my mom asks, you fed me dinner, okay?" Pip hadn't told her parents yet. She knew she'd have to later. Their families were close ever since Connor asked Pip for a playdate in 3rd grade, and her mom had seen a lot of Jamie recently. He'd been working at her real estate agency the past couple of months. But even so, Pip knew it would be a battle. Her mom would remind her how dangerously obsessed she got last time, as if she needed reminding, and tell her she should be studying instead. There just wasn't time for that argument now. The first 72 hours were crucial when somebody went missing, and they'd lost 23 already. "Pip?" Connor's mom, Jonna, had answered in the hallway. Her fair hair was piled on top of her head, and she looked somehow older in just one day. "Hi, Jonna." That was a rule. Always had been. Jonna, never Mrs. Reynolds. "Pip, thank you for," she said, trying on a smile that didn't quite fit. "Connor and I had no idea what to do, and we just knew you were the person to go to. Connor says you had no luck trying again with the police?" "No, I'm sorry," Pip said, following Jonna into the kitchen. "I tried, but they won't budge." "They don't believe us," Jonna said, opening one of the top cupboards. It wasn't a question. "Tea?" But that was. "No, thank you." Pip dropped her bag onto the kitchen table. She rarely drank tea anymore, not since the opening night of the town's winter carnival last year when Becca Bell had slipped Andy's remaining Rifonol pills into Pip's cup. "Shall we get started in here?" she said, hovering beside a chair. "Yes," Joanna said, losing her hands in the folds of her oversized sweater. "Best to do it in here." Pip settled into a chair, Connor taking the one beside her as she unzipped her bag and pulled out her computer, the 2 USB microphones and pop filters, the folder, a pen, and her bulky headphones. Joanna finally sat down, though she couldn't seem to keep still, shifting every few seconds and changing the position of her arms. "Is your dad here? Your sister?" Pip directed the questions at Connor, but Joanna was the one who answered. "Zoe's at college. I called her, told her Jamie's missing, but she's staying there. She seems to have come down on her father's side of things." "What do you mean?" "Arthur is." Joanna exchanged a quick look with Connor. "Arthur doesn't think Jamie's missing. Thinks he's just run off again and will be back soon. He seems very angry with the whole thing. With Jamie." She shifted again, scratching at a point just under her eye. "He thinks Connor and I are being ridiculous with all this." She gestured to Pip's equipment. "He's gone to the supermarket, but I'll probably be back soon." "Okay," Pip said, making a mental note, trying to betray nothing with her face. "Do you think he'll talk to me?" "No," Connor said firmly. "No point even asking." The atmosphere in the room was tight and uncomfortable, and Pip's armpits prickled with sweat. "Okay, before we do anything, I need to speak honestly with you both. Give you, I guess, a kind of disclaimer." They both nodded, eyes wholly focused now. "If you're asking me to investigate to help find Jamie, we have to agree up front where this could potentially take us, and you need to be happy to accept that, or I can't do it." Pip cleared her throat. It might lead us to potentially unsavory things about Jamie, secrets he might have kept from you and wouldn't want exposed. I agree that releasing the investigation on my podcast is the fastest way to get media attention for Jamie's disappearance, bring in witnesses who might know something. It might convince the police to actually investigate, or it might even get Jamie's attention if he really has just left and bring him back. But with that, you have to accept that your private lives will be laid bare. Nothing will be off limits, and that can be hard to deal with. Pip knew that better than most. The anonymous death and rape threats that came in weekly, comments and tweets calling her an ugly, hateful bitch. Jamie isn't here to agree to this, so you need to accept for him and for yourselves that you're opening up your lives to be scrutinized, and it's possible you'll learn things you never would have wanted to know. That's what happened last time, so I just want to check you're ready for that. Pip trailed into silence, her throat dry, wishing she'd asked for a glass of water instead. I accept, Joanna said, her voice growing with each syllable. Anything to get him home. Connor nodded. I agree, we have to find him. Okay, good, Pip said, though she couldn't help but wonder whether the Reynoldses had just given her permission to blow up their family like she had with the Wards and the Bells. They'd come to her, invited her in, and they didn't really understand the destruction that came in with her, hand in hand through that front door, which looked like a smile. It was just then that the front door opened, heavy footsteps on the carpet, the rustling of a plastic bag. Joanna jumped up, her chair screeching against the tiles. Jamie, she shouted, running through the hallway. Jamie? Just me, said a male voice. Not Jamie, and Joanna immediately deflated, like she'd just halved in size, holding on to the wall to keep the rest of her from disappearing too. Arthur Reynolds walked into the kitchen, curly red hair with wisps of gray around the ears, a thick mustache that peppered out into well-trimmed stubble. His pale blue eyes looked almost colorless in the bright LEDs. Got more bread and... Arthur broke off, his shoulders slumping as soon as he spotted Pip, laptop and microphones in front of her. For God's sake, Joanna, he said, this is ridiculous. He dropped the shopping bag on the floor and a can of plum tomatoes rolled under the table. I'm going to watch TV, he said, marching out of the kitchen and into the living room. The door slammed behind him, ricocheting through Pip's bones. Of all her friends' dads, she would have said Connor's was the scariest. Maybe Aunt's. But Kara's dad would have been the least, and look how that turned out. I'm sorry, Pip. Joanna came back to the table, picking up the lonely can on her way. I'm sure he'll come around. Eventually. Pip began. Should I be here? Yes, Joanna said firmly. Finding Jamie is more important than my husband's anger. Are you? I'm sure, she said. All right. Pip unclipped a green folder and pulled out 2 sheets of paper. I need you to sign release forms before we begin. She handed Connor her pen while Joanna fetched one from the counter. As they read through the forms, Pip reawakened her laptop, opened up Audacity, and plugged in the USB microphones, then readjusted the phone pop filters over them. Connor signed his name and the microphones came alive, picking up the scratching of his pen, the blue sound wave spiking from the center line. Joanna, I'll interview you first, if that's okay, Pip said. Sure. Joanna handed her the signed form. Pip shot Connor a quick, closed-lipped smile. He blinked vacantly back at her, not understanding the signal. Connor, she said gently, you have to leave. Witnesses must be interviewed separately so they aren't influenced by anyone else's account. Right, got it, he said, standing up. I'll go upstairs. Keep trying Jamie's phone. He closed the kitchen door behind him and Pip adjusted the microphones, placing one in front of Joanna. I'm going to ask you questions about yesterday, said Pip. Try to create a timeline of Jamie's day, but I'll also ask about Jamie in recent weeks in case anything is relevant. Just answer as truthfully as you can. Okay. Are you ready? Joanna breathed out, nodded. Pip slipped her headphones on, securing them around her ears, and guided the on-screen arrow toward the red record button. The cursor lingered over it. Pip wondered whether the moment of no return had already been and gone, or whether this was it, here, right now, hovering above that red button. Either way, going back didn't exist anymore, not for her. There was only forward, only onward. She straightened up and pressed record. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Season 2, Interview with Joanna Reynolds. Pip. Okay, before we get into the questions, Joanna, could you introduce yourself and Jamie a little? Joanna. Of course, my name is... Sorry, Joanna, you don't need to speak directly into the microphone. It picks up you just fine if you sit normally. Sorry, my name is Joanna Reynolds. I'm Jamie's mom. I have 3 children. Jamie is the oldest, my first. He just turned 24, his birthday, last week. We celebrated here, had Chinese takeout, and red velvet cake. Connor just managed to fit 24 candles on it. Oh, sorry, my other children, my daughter Zoe, she's 21 at college, and Connor, he's my baby, 18, in his last year of school. Sorry, that was terrible. Should I try again? No, that's okay. It was perfect. This is just a raw interview. I'll edit all All of this with sections of me talking and explaining in between, so you don't need to worry about consistency or sounding polished or anything. Okay. And some things I obviously already know the answer to, but I have to ask so we can present all the information in the episode. Like, for example, I'm going to ask you, does Jamie still live at home? I understand. Okay. Yes, Jamie still lives at home with me and my husband Arthur and my younger son Connor. And does he have a job currently? Yes, you know he works with your mom, Pip. I know, I just need to say, oh sorry, I forgot. Let me try again. Yes, Jamie is currently working part-time as a receptionist at a local real estate agency, Proctor and Radcliffe Homes. He's been there for almost 3 months now. It was very kind of your mom to give him the job, Pip. I'm very grateful. Since dropping out of college in his freshman year, Jamie's been struggling to find a job or keep the ones he does get. He's been a little lost the last couple of years, can't decide what he wants to do or what he's good at. We've tried helping him, but with Jamie, the more you push him towards something, the more he pulls away from it. That's why Arthur gets so frustrated with him. But I'm glad Jamie seems to be enjoying his job, at least for now. And would you say Jamie struggles to commit to things? Is that why he dropped out of college? Yes, I think that's part of the problem. He tried, he really did, but he found the pressure too much and just shut down. Had a panic attack during one of his exams. I think some people just aren't made for that sort of academic environment. Jamie, he's a very sensitive boy. Man, I mean, you know him, Pip. Arthur worries that he's oversensitive, but he's been like this since he was a child. A very sweet little boy. All the other mothers used to say so. Yeah, he's only ever been nice to me. He was never Connor's scary older brother or anything, and everyone else seems to like him. Speaking of, who are Jamie's closest friends? Any in Fairview? He still occasionally talks to one guy from college, and I think he might have some internet friends too. He's always on that computer. Jamie's never been too good at friends. He makes fierce one-on-one relationships and falls in deep, so he's always devastated when they don't work out. I'd say his closest friend at the moment is Nat De Silva. I know Nat. Of course, there's not many from their grade still living here in Fairview, apart from Naomi Ward and Max Hastings. Sorry, I shouldn't bring him up. But Nat and Jamie seem to have a lot in common. Nat also had issues at college and left early, and she's struggling to find a job she really wants because she's got a criminal record. I think they both feel left behind in this town, and it's nicer to be left behind with someone else. Everything that happened last year sort of brought them together, too. Nat had been friendly with Sal Singh, and Jamie was friends with Andy Bell. He spent a lot of time with Andy during rehearsals for school plays. Jamie and Nat were just on the stage of everything that happened, and I think they bonded over it. They've become really close since last year, talk all the time. She's probably Jamie's only real friend at the moment, though, truth be told, I think Jamie sees her in a different way from how she sees him. What do you mean? Well, oh God, Jamie is going to be so furious I'm saying this, but I did agree nothing was off limits. I know my son very well, and he's never been good at hiding his feelings. I could always tell by the way he talked about Nat, how he kept finding ways to bring her up in every single conversation, that he was enamored with her. Smitten. They spoke on the phone almost every day, always texting. But of course, things were different after Nat got a new boyfriend a couple of months ago. I don't think Jamie ever mentioned the guy's name, but he was devastated. I found him crying in his room. He said it was because he had a stomachache, but I knew. It wasn't the first time I'd seen him like that. I knew it was because his heart was broken, and it was probably about Nat. How long ago was this? Must have been early March. There were a couple of weeks without much contact, I think, but they're still friends. In fact, Jamie's always on his phone texting, and it must be with Nat because he jumps up so none of us can see. I can hear him up late sometimes too, on the phone. By his voice, I can tell it's Nat he's talking to. Okay, thank you. I'll certainly talk to Nat as soon as I can. So Connor said to me that he's more worried about Jamie this time because he's been acting strangely the past few weeks, distant and short-tempered. Have you noticed the same thing? He hasn't been quite himself the past couple of weeks. Up late, coming in at all hours, oversleeping and almost missing work, snapping at his brother when they normally get on so well. I think it's partly everything with Nat, but also, like I said, feeling like he's been left behind, watching all the people he went to school and college with, starting successful careers, settling down with partners, moving out of their parents' houses. Jamie's very self-conscious. He's told me before he often feels worthless, never quite good enough. He's been struggling with his weight, too, over the past 6 months or so. I told him it doesn't matter as long as he's healthy and comfortable in his skin, but, well, you know how the world tries to make anyone over a certain size feel ashamed of that. I think Jamie's been unhappy the past few weeks because he's comparing himself to everyone else, feeling like he'll never catch up, but I know he will. Sorry, Joanna, I don't want to ask this, but you don't think he could be at risk of harming himself? No, absolutely not. Jamie wouldn't do that to me, to his family. He wouldn't. That's not what this is, Pip. He's missing. He's not dead, and we will find him, wherever he is. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's move on. Jamie went missing yesterday, Friday evening. Can you talk me through what happened during the day? Yes, I woke up around 9. My hours on Friday are late. I don't start till 11. Arthur was ready at work. He commutes, and Connor had already walked to school. But Jamie was still fast asleep. I told him he was going to be late for work, and he left the house around 20 past 9, said he would grab breakfast from the cafe on the way. Then I went to work. Arthur left work early to get home in time for the memorial. He texted around 5 that he was home. I left work soon after and stopped by the supermarket and got home maybe 6 or 6:30. Did a quick turnabout, and then the 4 of us left for the memorial. What was Jamie wearing that evening? I can't remember. He was wearing jeans and his favorite t-shirt. It's burgundy and collarless, like the Peaky Blinders Jamie always says. Shoes? Oh, his sneakers, white. Brand? Nike, I think. Did you drive to the memorial? Yes. And was Jamie acting strangely before the memorial at all? No, not really. He was quiet, but he was probably just thinking about Andy and Sal. Everyone was quiet, in fact. I think we had an almost silent car ride. And when we arrived at the pavilion around 7, Connor went to find his friends, you guys, and Jamie left too, said he was going to stand with Nat during the memorial. That was the last time I saw him. I saw him after that. He did find Nat. He was with her and Naomi. And after that, he came over to talk to Connor briefly. He seemed fine to me both times. And then during the memorial, before Robbie's dad spoke, Jamie walked past and knocked into me from behind. He seemed distracted, maybe even nervous. I don't know what he saw that made him want to struggle through the crowd right in the middle of the ceremony, but it had to be something. But it had to be something. When was that? Maybe 10 past 8. So now you're the last person to see him. I guess I am, for now. Do you know whether Jamie had any plans for after the memorial? No, I thought he'd go home, but today Connor told me that Jamie mentioned seeing Nat or something. Okay, I'll get that from Connor firsthand. Where did you go after the memorial? Arthur and I went out for dinner to Bobby's Bar and Grill, you know, the place near Town Hall, with some friends, the Lowe's, Aunt's parents, and the Davises and the Morgans. You know Mrs. Morgan and her husband. The date had been in the diary for ages. And when did you and Arthur get home? Well, we actually came back separately. I was driving, so I didn't drink, but some of our party who weren't supposed to be drinking said they needed one after the memorial. I said I'd drop the Lowe's and the Morgans home so they could drink. Of course, that meant the car was full, but Arthur didn't mind walking home. It isn't far. What time did you leave the restaurant? I think we all left just before 11. Everyone was tired and it felt wrong staying out too late enjoying ourselves after the memorial. The Lowe's live in town, as you know, but the Morgans are out in Springdale, and, as Arthur says, I'm terrible when it comes to chatting, so I didn't get back until 12:15, at least. Connor and Arthur were there in bed, but no Jamie. I texted him before I went to sleep. Look, I'll read what it says. Going to bed now, sweetie. Will you be home soon? That was at 12:36. Look, it never delivered. It hasn't gone through. And the text still hasn't gone through? No, that's bad, isn't it? His phone is still off, and it must have already been off before 12:36, or something. Something bad. Please don't get upset, Joanna. Okay, let's stop there. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, Season 2, Interview with Connor Reynolds. Pip. Recording. You need to stop chewing your nails, though, Connor. The mic's picking it up. Connor. Sorry. So I wanted to focus on a comment you made earlier that Jamie had been acting strangely the past few weeks. Short-tempered and distant. Can you give me specific instances and dates? Yeah, I'll try. It's been the past couple of months, really, that Jamie's mood has seemed kind of erratic. He was fine, just normal Jamie, and then at the start of March he seemed really miserable and quiet, would hardly talk to anyone, a black cloud hanging over him, to use my mom's words. Your mom seemed to think Jamie was upset when Nat De Silva got a new boyfriend, as they'd been getting so close. Could that have explained Jamie's mood then? Yeah, maybe. That probably matches up time-wise. So he was like that a couple of weeks, and then suddenly he was okay again, smiling and joking, spending a lot of time on his phone. We have a no phones with Netflix rule, otherwise Mom just goes on Facebook and we have to rewind when she misses stuff. But I noticed Jamie was always on his, and not just on Reddit. It looked like he was typing, talking to someone. Yeah, and he seemed to be in a good mood during this period? Yeah, definitely. For like a week and a half, he was good, chatty, smiley, normal Jamie, and then he switched back again just as suddenly. I know exactly which day it was because we all went to see the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and we went on March 27th. Before we left, Jamie comes out of his room and says he's not coming, and I could tell from his voice he was trying not to cry. But my dad told him he had to come because we'd already bought the tickets. They got into a fight about it, and in the end, Jamie did come. I sat next to him, could see him crying during the film. He didn't think anyone could see, because it was dark. Do you know why he was so upset? No idea. He carried on like that for a few days, locking himself in his room straight after work. One night I asked him if he was okay, and he just said, yeah, fine. We both knew he wasn't. Jamie and me, we've always told each other everything, up until recently. I don't know what happened to us. And after those few days, well, then he kind of went back to normal. He seemed happy, not just happy, but better than before. And he was on his phone the whole time. I just wanted us to be close again, to play around like we always used to. So one day when he was typing away on his phone a few weeks ago, I ran past and grabbed it, saying, Who are you texting then? It was just a joke. I was teasing. I wasn't going to look, and he always does it to me. But Jamie didn't take it like that. He snapped, pushed me up against the wall until I dropped his phone. I was never going to actually look at it. It was just a joke. But when he had me up against the wall like that, it didn't feel like my brother anymore. He said sorry afterwards, said something about privacy, but it was, it felt wrong. And I've heard him up really late on the phone, in fact, almost every night the past 2 weeks or so. And a couple of times over the past weekend, I heard him sneak out of his room once Mom and Dad had gone to bed. I don't know where he went. He did that last week on the night of his birthday. I heard him sneak out before midnight. I waited up, listening. He came back in around 2, and when I mentioned it the next morning, he said I must have been hearing things. And I woke up randomly at 3 a.m. this Tuesday morning. I guess I'm pretty sure it was Jamie sneaking back in that woke me. I see. But this is not normal Jamie. You know him, Pip. He's usually so easygoing, calm, but now his mood is suddenly up and down. He's keeping secrets and sneaking out, getting angry. Something's wrong. I know it. My mom showed you the text, right? She sent it to Jamie around 12:30 last night, and it's still not delivered. His phone's been off since before then, or broken. Or out of battery? No, it was almost fully charged. I know because when we were in the car, I asked Jamie the time and he showed me a screen. It was at 88% or something. It's a newish phone. It wouldn't die that quickly. And why would he turn it off when he was out and about? Doesn't make sense. Yes, the text not delivering at that time certainly is significant. What do you think it means? I can't speculate until I know more. It means he's in trouble, doesn't it? You just don't want to say it, that somebody's hurt him or taken him. Connor, we don't know anything yet. I'm not ruling anything out, but we can't settle on conclusions without any evidence. That's not how this works. Let's move on to yesterday. Can you talk me through your day, your interactions with Jamie? Anything significant? What? Well, there was something. Connor? You won't tell my mom, will you? Remember what you asked of me. When I release this, it will go out to hundreds of thousands of people. Your mom is going to hear it, so whatever it is, you need to tell me, and then you need to tell her. Shit. Yeah, it's just... Okay, so Jamie and my mom, they get on really well. They always have. I guess you might call him a mama's boy. They just click. But Jamie and Dad have a tricky relationship. Jamie said to me before he thinks Dad hates him, that Dad's constantly disappointed by him. They don't really talk anything through, they just let things build up until they occasionally explode into big arguments. And then once that's done and the awkwardness is gone, they go back to normal and the cycle resets. Well, they had one of their big arguments yesterday. When? At like 5:30. Mom was still at the supermarket. The argument ended before she got back and she doesn't know about it. I was listening from the stairs. What was it about? The usual things they fight about. Dad telling Jamie he needs to suck it up and sort his life out, that he and Mom will always be there to pick up the pieces. Jamie said he was trying, that Dad never notices when he's trying because he presumes Jamie's going to fail anyway. I couldn't hear the whole fight, but I remember Dad saying something like, "We aren't a bank, we are your parents." I don't know what that was about. I guess maybe Dad brought up that he thinks Jamie should pay rent to still live here. Mom thinks that's ridiculous and would never allow it, but Dad's always going on about how else will he learn. The last thing they said to each other before Mom came back was, "What?" Dad said, "You're a waste of space," and Jamie said, "I know." Is that why everyone was quiet on the drive to the memorial? Your mom picked up on it. Yeah. Oh God, she's going to be so upset when I tell her. You should tell her tonight after I'm gone. I guess. So back to last night. You arrive at the memorial and you go off to find our friends and Jamie goes off to find Nat. But then Jamie comes up to you at one point. When Zach and I were talking to my new neighbors, Jamie came up and spoke to you. Yeah. What did he say? He apologized, said sorry about the argument with Dad. He knows I hate it when they fight. And then he told me that after the memorial he was going to go to Nat DeSilva's house for a little bit. Spend the evening with her. I think they thought it was only right to be in the company of someone else who knew Sal and Andy. He said he'd be back home that night, though. And as he walked off, the last thing he said to me was, "See you later." I don't think he'd lie to my face like that if he knew he wasn't coming back. But Mom and I called Nat this morning, and Nat never saw Jamie after the memorial. She doesn't know where he is. And where did you go after the memorial? Well, me and Zach didn't want to go to the calamity party with Aunt and Lauren because they ignore everyone else anyway, so I went to Zach's and we played Fortnite, so now the world knows that then, and Zach later dropped me off at home. What time? We left Zach's just after 11:30, so I must have been back around 12. I was tired and went straight to bed, didn't even brush my teeth, and Jamie never came back. I went to bed without a second thought about Jamie. It's so stupid, really, how you take things like that for granted. I was stupid. I thought he'd come home. He was supposed to come home, and now he's...